Front yard looked like a war zone, and the HOA president was holding the grenade launcher. Karen, with her clipboard and smug grin, had rammed a pipeline through my property without so much as a courtesy email. They called it community progress. I called it trespassing. My name's Ellie, and I'm not the type to roll over when someone bulldozes my life. That pipeline wasn't just a metal snake slithering through my land. It was a betrayal of every neighborly promise this town ever made. I'd spent years building my home, a quiet refuge after a messy divorce, only to wake up to construction crews tearing up my lawn. Karen's HOA claimed it was for a new irrigation system to beautify the subdivision. Funny how their beauty meant my ruin. The pipeline wasn't just an eyesore. It leaked. Water seeped into my basement, warping the floors I'd laid myself. My garden, where I grew tomatoes for the farmer's market, turned to sludge. Worst of all, they diverted the town's main water supply through my property without permission, claiming eminent domain. I tried reasoning with Karen at the HOA meeting. Her response, "Ellie, don't be dramatic. It's for the greater good." The room nodded like sheep. I walked out, fists shaking, knowing reason wasn't going to win this war. I spent nights poring over legal documents, my coffee going cold as I traced property lines and water rights laws. That's when I found it a loophole. The town's water supply relied on a century-old agreement tied to private land ownership. My land. The HOA had assumed they could bully me into compliance, but they'd missed one critical detail: I could buy the water rights to the entire aquifer beneath my property. It was a long shot, but I had savings and a grudge hotter than a summer drought. I cashed out my retirement fund and hired a lawyer named Mitch, who smelled like cigars but knew water law like a poet knows sonnets. Within weeks, I owned the rights to every drop of water feeding Karen's precious pipeline. The day I got the paperwork, I didn't celebrate. I planned. Karen's pipeline was fully operational now, watering manicured lawns and filling fountains in the HOA's gated community. But it was fragile. One legal move, and I could shut it down. I waited for the perfect moment: the HOA's annual gala, where Karen would parade her victory to the town's elite. I dressed in my best jeans, tucked the water rights deed in my pocket, and crashed the party. The gala was a sea of champagne flutes and fake smiles. Karen stood on a stage, waxing poetic about community unity and her pipeline's success. I stepped forward, my boots loud on the polished floor. "Karen," I said, voice steady, "your pipeline's illegal." The crowd gasped. She laughed, dismissing me as a sore loser. That's when I held up the deed. "I own the water, every drop, and as of midnight, I'm cutting it off." Her face went white. The room buzzed with whispers. Karen stammered, "You can't do that." But Mitch, leaning against the bar, nodded. I could. Midnight came, and I did it. With a single phone call to the county, I halted the water flow. The pipeline went dry. By morning, Karen's pristine lawns were browning, her fountains silent. The HOA's gated paradise looked like a ghost town. But Karen didn't surrender. She fought dirty, rallying her cronies to sue me, claiming I was sabotaging the community. The lawsuits piled up, and the town turned on me. Neighbors I'd known for years called me selfish. My mailbox overflowed with hate letters. Even Mitch warned me the legal battle could bankrupt me. I started to doubt myself. Had I gone too far, then came the counterattack. Karen's desperation made her sloppy. She bribed a county official to falsify documents, trying to void my water rights. But Mitch was sharper. He caught the paper trail and leaked it to the local paper. The headline screamed, "HOA President Caught in Corruption Scandal." The town erupted. Protesters gathered outside Karen's house, demanding her resignation. Her allies abandoned her, and the lawsuits against me crumbled. I wasn't just fighting for my land anymore. I'd exposed a rot in the system. People started asking questions about the HOA's finances, its shady contracts. Karen's empire was unraveling, and I was holding the thread. But victory didn't feel sweet. The town was divided, and I was still the outsider. My basement was still flooded, my garden gone. One evening, I sat on my porch, staring at the dry pipeline, cutting through my yard like a scar. Mitch stopped by with a beer. "You won, Ellie," he said. I shook my head. "Did I?" The water rights were mine, but the cost was heavy. I'd lost friends, drained my savings, and turned my home into a battlefield. Karen was ruined, sure, but so was the trust I'd once had in this place. In the end, I made a choice. I donated the water rights to the town, but with conditions: no more pipelines without consent, no more HOAs bullying residents. The town council agreed, and Karen's pipeline was dismantled. Her gated community became just another neighborhood, its fountains replaced by community gardens. Karen moved away, her name a cautionary tale. I rebuilt my home, plank by plank, but I never replanted my garden. Some things don't grow back. As I sit on my porch now, the scars of that fight are still there. The cracked soil, the empty flower beds. But there's a quiet pride, too. I stood up when no one else would. I left Karen's world dry, not out of spite, but because sometimes you have to break something to build it better. The town's healing, slowly. So am I. But I'll never forget the cost of that pipeline, or the woman who thought she could bury me under it. The weeks after the pipeline's dismantlement were a blur of rebuilding and reckoning. My house stood firm, but the silence was heavy. No more construction crews. No more HOA meetings buzzing with Karen's voice. The town was trying to stitch itself back together, but trust is a slow-growing thing. I'd walk past neighbors' houses, catching their glances, some grateful, some wary. I was no hero, just a woman who'd fought too hard to lose everything. My basement dried out, but the warped floors stayed, a reminder of what I'd endured. I'd sit there sometimes, tracing the cracks, wondering if I'd do it all again. Then came the letters. Not hate mail this time, but notes slipped under my door, left in my mailbox. A widow down the street thanked me for standing up to the HOA. She'd been overcharged for years. A young couple invited me to their barbecue, saying my fight inspired them to question the town council. Slowly, the community gardens I'd pushed for took root. People worked side by side, planting vegetables where Karen's fountains once stood. I didn't join them. I wasn't ready, but I'd watch from my porch, feeling something like hope. One day, Mitch showed up with news. Karen had been indicted for fraud, her bribery scandal bigger than we'd thought. The gated community's finances were a mess, and her cronies were scrambling to save themselves. "You started this, Ellie," Mitch said, handing me a coffee. I shrugged. I just wanted my yard back. But he was right. My fight had cracked open a truth the town couldn't ignore. People were talking now, demanding transparency, holding leaders accountable. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Winter came, and with it, a quiet resolution. I started fixing my house in earnest: new floors, fresh paint. I even bought tomato seeds, though I didn't plant them yet. One evening, a kid from the neighborhood knocked on my door, holding a petition. The town wanted to name the community gardens after me. I laughed, embarrassed, and told them to name it something else. "Call it Freedom Plots," I said. They did. As spring broke, I stood in my yard, the pipeline scars fading under new grass. I'd lost a lot: money, friends, pieces of myself, but I'd gained something, too. A voice, a purpose. Karen's world was gone, and in its place was something messier, realer. I wasn't whole, but I was standing. That was enough. You don't have to fight a pipeline to make a difference. Just stand up where you are. Find your loophole, your deed, your truth, and don't back down.